We're 2 minutes after 7, so let's get started. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Pathway to Residency webinar series, which is powered by thalamus.org and Thalamus. We are very excited to have you here tonight. My name is Jason Reminick. I am a physician by training, but I'm also the CEO and founder of Thalamus. I'm joined by a number of my colleagues tonight, who I'll introduce in just a moment. We are very, very excited to launch this series that has been inspired after we've given versions of these talks to medical schools and students that were applying to residency going back almost a decade. They've been well received in the individual medical schools that we've worked with, some for that long. But we had a lot of asks from the community, especially given the reach and the number of programs that are using Thalamus due to our collaboration with the AAMC and the Electronic Residency Application Service, and our talks with many of the undergraduate medical education and medical school community to really start providing data and guidance and kind of provide Thalamus's unique perspective on what we wish people would know in applying to residency. And as myself, as a former applicant, and our team that has former program coordinators and or program directors and CIOs and otherwise. We are very, very excited to launch this. This is brand new for this year. Like most things technology startups do. This is a very dynamic process. Your feedback is going to be really helpful. We will be pivoting and making changes and improving and responding to your feedback along the way. We want to ensure that this has value for you. We want to ensure that this continues to grow, and we'd like to make this an annual thing overall. So this series will run from June 2026 through April of 2027. It's a year-long experience that will guide future physicians from residency application to intern year, and kind of all of the information we wish we could share and will share with those applying to this process from our perspective, working with over 8,000 residency and fellowship programs across the country, and the many GME experts we have on our team. So we're really, really excited to share this with you. This is done in collaboration between Thalamus as well as thalamus.org, which is our sibling nonprofit organization. And thalamus.org is created to build a stronger physician workforce together. We started with scholarships to help defray the costs of applying to residency, and it built out additional programming like this Pathway to Residency webinar series. And so as we jump in here, I wanted to turn it over briefly to my colleague, Jamie Thayer Skates, who is the CEO of thalamus.org, to welcome everyone and tell you a little bit about the .org.
Good evening. Thank you, Jason, and welcome. Super excited to have you all with us as we launch into this series. As Jason said, thalamus.org is a 501c3, and it was founded to build a healthcare system that supports physicians at every stage. So the idea is to improve health outcomes by strengthening the U.S. physician workforce, and it starts here. By investing in the next generation of physicians and ensuring that you all have the resources and guidance as you plan for residency. So just like some things to be aware of, there's the Pathway to Residency, which is the series that you are launching on tonight. And then Jason talked about the scholarships for residency applicants as well. And then in August, we're going to have Future Physicians Week, where we will get to celebrate some advances, innovations, landmarks, and your journey in medicine. And then the work we are doing will be expanding into the physician workforce and really looking at recruiting, training, and inspiring middle and high school students to pursue careers in medicine. And with that in mind, really thinking about representative workforce and then also rural and underserved access initiatives. So some really exciting things on the horizon as well. Before I turn it back over to Jason, I do want to thank our partners. I know we have some other partners who are pending as well, but tonight I want to thank AMWA, APAMSA, MD Plus, Project IMG, Gold Foundation, Conduct Science, and Practice Link. It's been really fun to collaborate with all of them to bring this to you all. So with that, thank you, and I'll turn it back over to you, Jason.
Thank you, Jamie. Really appreciate it. And yeah, we are really excited that the .org is continuing to grow and provide these programs alongside what Thalamus is trying to accomplish on our .com side. And our mission at Thalamus is to ensure that the right doctors are in the right hospitals to treat the right patients. And what that means is it's 3 o'clock in the morning and someone's rolling up to an emergency room having the worst health event of their life. What are we doing upstream to ensure that that doctor is there for them and that patient at their greatest time of need? And so we are a public benefit corporation with a public benefit purpose in our charter of ensuring greater access to affordable, high quality medical education and training, addressing systemic inequities in the physician workforce, and delivering better healthcare outcomes for patients and society. And that kind of flows into everything we do, well beyond just providing software and wanting to provide this insight and this guidance in applying to residency as well. And we feel it very closely aligns with our broader mission. We are the most used interview management platform built by GME for GME. That includes over 800 health systems across 8,000 training programs across specialties that use all application systems and all match providers. 500,000 physicians have come through our platform over the last 13 years, which is over half of the broader US physician workforce. We've scheduled and completed over 5 million interviews, including over 200 million minutes of virtual interviews. And so we have seen how programs recruit. We will provide that information, what they're looking for, things to look for on your application, how to put together an application, really everything from the start of I'm ready to start to apply to residency. And if you're an M4 who's about to do that now, or an M3 or an M2 or an M1 or an advisor supporting students or on the GME side or the UME side or any which side of this transition to residency, we want to make sure you get value and find information here in this series as well. Um, in April of 2023, we formed a strategic collaboration with the Association of American Medical Colleges and have essentially served as their technology provider for interview scheduling and interview management across the programs. We're used by roughly 90% of all residency programs across all residency specialties now as well. So a large portion of your interviews will come through our system, and we will be talking about that throughout the webinar series as well. This is our team. This is Team Thalamus. We're now 65 plus people who are all very, very passionate about GME and UME. Many of them have come from the GME world, including several of my colleagues here tonight, Ashley Page and Channing Jackson, who are both on our customer success and kind of enablement and strategic account manager teams, who are two of many former program coordinators and program administrators on our team. They'll be a part in our series. Also, Dr. Jeff Burns is here tonight as well, former DIO and program director. And so just some of the many GME experts that exist in Thalamus and the transition experts. We have over 200 plus years of GME experience and GME recruitment experience on our team in various specialties and various capacities. And we have lots of other folks who are really, really passionate about making this transition as seamless as it can be. So this brings us to the pathway to residency, and I'm doing a little bit of housekeeping here to kind of just set up the broader kind of series itself. This is the broader kind of series. One of the great things about kind of this deck and something I'm trying tonight is something I kind of leaned into more is building decks using AI as well. So these are all AI assisted. I'll talk a little bit more about myself, but I come from a background and I have a degree in theatrical direction. And I really look at life as kind of pictures and it helps me tell stories. And we'll talk about narratives tonight. But I was able to, enhance some of my slides here with AI. I will also show you some cautionary lessons, which is why I built it with AI as well, which we'll talk about tonight. But we kind of breaking this pathway to residency across four different kind of themes, if you will. Building your story, understanding the landscape, and navigating the recruitment season, as well as then becoming a resident. And so we'll go from everything from now into actually starting residency as an intern. And tonight will be very kind of high level and philosophical related to starting this pathway and kind of what that means in determining what matters in building your narrative. Next week, we will do something that's much more kind of checklist in the sense of it'll go through all of the key components of the applications and the various application systems and understanding signals. Um, Number three, professionalism builds trust. The signals programs notice even before you interview, which will be led by several of our team on July 15th at 6 p.m. Eastern. And then what programs actually see, understanding how residency applications are reviewed on July 30th. We have a rough outline for the rest of the series. We're kind of finalizing dates as we go here. We'll look to finalize the rest of the series so that it can get on everyone's calendars. But we also want to hear from you when these sessions make sense and when they will be helpful. And we will try to work around everyone's schedule as much as we can. There's hundreds of people who've been interested in this. Other questions that we've been getting is, will these be posted? And so we're working to figure out the best way to post these for the community for those that can't be here, and we'll communicate that more as well. We want to understand when it's helpful for you to do these things. We've built the curriculum so that it will align with kind of key components of the transition to residency overall. The second block, in terms of understanding the landscape, we will have a session particularly for IMGs and the risks, the opportunities, and the reality of the match for that group of applicants, both U.S. citizen and non-U.S. citizen IMGs. We'll have a session on AI, holistic review, and the future of residency recruitment, as well as navigating complex paths, whether you're dual applying into multiple specialties, couples matching, strategic decision making, or otherwise. In the third block, we'll navigate the recruitment season itself, including managing your interview season, kind of data, looking at interview invitations, when they come out, what they look like overall, the hidden architects of recruitment, and kind of the key role that program coordinators play and want applicants to understand in the process. The comparison trap and understanding where you stand mid-season after some invites have gone out, but not all of them had. What does that mean? What does that look like? The quiet part of match season as it kind of dies down towards the end, and what should you be thinking about and learning from? That home stretch is your ranking programs and kind of managing the doubt and preparing for match day. And then the waiting and wondering, navigating through match week, SOAP, and just the general uncertainty of that process. Session 15 will be becoming a resident. The personal transition really no one prepares you for. And then the first 90 days of your residency. We're very, very excited because I think this process is navigated by many. This is the information I wish I would have had. This is the information many of the folks on our team wish they would have and or could share with a broader group of applicants. Throughout, the general structure will be kind of us presenting the main topic for the first 45 minutes of the session, and the last 15 minutes or so we'll leave it for opening questions. We can play with those structures over time. We can extend this a little bit longer if there are additional questions and such as well. You also all submitted lots of great questions in the registration piece also. And with each session, we will follow up with the link for that session and debrief from each session and this session's coming soon emails as well. So you'll be hearing a lot from us. If you're interested and want to continue, we'd love to have you through the whole process for whatever ones you can make and whichever ones are of interest to you as well. Yeah, so that is the series overall. The series itself is data driven. We've collected millions of data points over the last 13 recruitment seasons that we've done. We have a research team. We consider ourselves a grassroots collaboration of academic physicians and medical researchers, current and former applicants, program directors, coordinators, and GME leadership. We also have geographic data scientists, economists, selection and recruitment experts, organization and behavioral psychologists, folks that are technologists and engineers and product experts and otherwise as well. We are going to approach this process from every which way in terms of data from the process, when invites go out, what that looks like, application data, signaling data. We're going to look at the technologies that are used in this process. We're going to pull back the curtain between what Thalamus does and kind of what the program sees and how they use our software as well, which has been a big ask from the community, and really just to try to provide a comprehensive perspective of how we put all of this together. An example of that is kind of a snapshot from last season. We have an API with the AAMC that sends data between the two systems and makes applications accessible in our system as well. We processed over 10 million applications last year through that API. Applicants don't use that. It's more on the program side, but just to give you the scale at which we're approaching this process, we have 90% of programs use what we call Thalamus Core, which is what all the applicants will know as Thalamus, to send out residency interviews across all of the specialties. We have an application review tool and screening tool called Cortex that was used by about 30% of residency programs and over 2,500 programs overall past year, which was a doubling from the year prior. And we did 100 million minutes of virtual interviews on Thalamus Video. So in addition to our interview scheduling platform, we also do virtual interviews, but you can also use Zoom and Teams, etc. We will go through how you use Thalamus, all of the things on Thalamus from both the applicant and the program side as well. But this is just kind of a taste as to what this will look like. The graph that's showing here is the number of invites that went out by day per the day of the interview season. We'll spend an entire session talking about interview data and invite data and when this goes out, but this is the kind of data that we're talking about. The black bar charts are or histograms are last season that started in September 2025 and ended in March of 2026, and the green is the year prior. And so as you can see, this is kind of how invites go out. The third week of the season tends to have the most invites. We sometimes send out 50 or 60,000 invites on a single day. When you drill down into this further and when you look at various specialties, these curves look very, very different as well. So sometimes there will be few invites sent by specialties over the first several weeks of the season, or sometimes even the first month of the season. Some of the specialties invite on the first day, and we'll talk to many of these nuances as well. If you have any questions, please feel free to type into the chat. And uh, uh, we will be happy to answer questions. We will save time for questions at the end as well. But this is kind of where some of the data is. We also have a Getting Started on Thalamus, which is a reference guide, which for those of you that are applying, if you've consumed your Eris token, you will have likely gotten access to Thalamus. If you're applying to a specialty that doesn't use Eris, you'll receive access to Thalamus on your first interview invitation. And that means you'll finalize your account then. Finalizing an account is setting a password and takes really less than 10 seconds. And if you've applied prior, you still have your account. You can use this QR code to screen through this and kind of see these these guides, and it kind of walks you through all of the various components of that as well. We have a big team. So far, at least 9 members of our team will be a part of this series, and we expect many more will be, including some special guests. But as you can see here, many of these folks have GME and or UME experience, including Kelly Hooper, former program coordinator in OBGYN, Channing Jackson, who's here tonight. We've talked about Megan Tier in internal medicine, Kristen Smith, former coordinator in pathology. We talked about Jeff and Dr. Burns. We have Dr. Susie Karen as well, who's a program director in anesthesiology and a former associate DIO. Alex Thompson, who is a medical student, and Vlad Eilman, who is a PhD and is our chief product and technology officer. And they'll each be part of this series as part of their expertise. And again, we'll have some guests as well during this time. And as Jamie mentioned, we want to thank our kind of partners, both program and supporting engagement partners across the many organizations which Jamie mentioned and are shown here as well. And so a big thank you, and we expect that this list will continue to expand over time also as this series continues to grow and as we get additional engagements. Okay, that was the kind of lead in to tonight's topic. Which is the pathway to residency, a year-long experience from application to intern year. This is session 1, starting the pathway to residency, determining what matters, and building your narrative. And so this is all about telling the story of who you are as a person and who you want to be as a physician and how to put that into your application. Also from the perspective of how programs are going to review and interpret that narrative and build their own narrative on their end as well, and where they go from that too. So tonight will be kind of very picture-based and story based intentionally, given that the topic tonight is your narrative. The next session, as I mentioned, will be more of the checklist of going through the application and key components there. And then each session will have its slightly different flavor as well. And so we'd appreciate your feedback. And there will be a survey link at the end also, so we can best understand the way you all like to learn, the way you all like to receive information, and also we can adjust, each session from there on out as well. So. The outline for tonight is what do residency programs actually look for? As you start to fill out your application, as you start to plan your application process, what are you optimizing for? And then once you do that, how are applicants evaluated during holistic review or otherwise? What is holistic review or now mission aligned selection and retention? And also, why authenticity, professionalism, and narrative, and I'll say narrative again, and I'll say narrative a lot tonight, mean a lot. So, narratives are really, really important because there are elements in narratives, ideas, experiences, emotions, kind of all of the pieces. And we as humans take those elements and we build them into narratives, and this is how we process information. Those narratives allow us to find shared meaning and thereby connection, connect to a story, connect to an applicant, connect to an application, connect to a program, etc. Narrative structure is the reason we watch Netflix. It's the reason we watch Hulu or Disney Plus or Apple TV or YouTube or read a novel or read a magazine or tell people stories. It is a way for us to process information and it is a way for us to have a connection to that information and feel something and understand that information. So it's the stories that connect us overall. And the stories allow us to connect as humans, whether you're at a conference listening to a talk, or sitting in a circle of friends, or out in a social setting, or drawing, or being in a creative space, or watching theater, or watching sports and watching the Knicks win the NBA championship. All of these things, all of these narratives connect us, and they allow us to process information overall. And so we like to do our kind of puns at Thalamus. A lot of what we do is neuroanatomically connected. Narratives, if it was a synapse, help form that connection. We have another series out called the Thalamus Synapse, which is all about connection. And it's a medical education conference, particularly about narratives and the understanding of the why people are where they are and how we can solve challenges in the transitions to residency and fellowship. And that extends here. And this whole idea of connection is what many of us are yearning for as physicians to be able to connect with our patients, to be able to connect with our colleagues on rounds and in our programs and in our medical schools and throughout our careers. We're all forming those connections and those narratives with technology and AI, which we'll touch tonight as well. And overall, the connections we have with our communities, which is where our patients are and where we are. And as you're looking for residency programs, you're not only selecting the program, in many cases, you're selecting that community as well, and certainly the patient population that that health system or that academic institution serves. And so this narrative leads to all of this connection. And as you approach the application process, you're looking to find that connection for yourself that fits your narrative and programs that fit your narrative and programs where the applicant fits their narrative. And you're looking for that alignment, really not only of people, but also of narrative and of purpose. And so we'll dive into that a bit more. As I said, tonight was very narrative driven, and I've been able to use AI in various capacities. The most detailed narrative that many of us will write in our careers in medicine is our personal statements to medical school and our personal statement to residency. And I took my personal statement, literally from residency, and I plugged it into ChatGPT, and I said, ChatGPT, uh, build me my narrative visually. Make it look like a drawing with colored pencils or crayons. Tell me who I am as a person. Tell me how I think. Tell me how I feel. Tell me what's important to me. tell me what's important to me in terms of the patients that I take care of, and the like. And I would encourage you all to do this exercise, not necessarily throw your personal statements into ChatGPT, but do real self-reflection about who you are and what you are looking for. For me, and this hasn't changed, I don't practice clinically anymore. I never would have imagined that. I've wanted to be a doctor since I was 12. But the key themes of my life have continued to persist. I'm fascinated by medical research. I have a degree in biochemistry, and a master's degree in chemistry, but I'm also very artistic. And as I mentioned, I have a background in theater as well. I went to undergrad at the University of Pennsylvania. I got my master's in chemistry there as well. And then from there, worked in the pharma industry for a year on a drug that would replace the statin. It never made it through clinical trials, but it was a really fascinating experience and a planned gap year before I made my way up to the University of Rochester and did an MD and an MBA there. And then fell in love with entrepreneurship and medical sociology, the distal and proximal causes of disease, and really wanting to make a better healthcare system overall. Ended up matching into a combined pediatrics and anesthesiology residency program out on the West Coast, out at Stanford, and made the unique decision to put my clinical career on hold to run Thalamus full time. And that narrative could not have been written at any point in my life except when it happened. I do not believe I would have been doing this. I'm very passionate about physicians being leaders and innovators in healthcare. I think we have a very unique perspective. And I'm also very passionate about letting everyone know that's reached this point that whether you're US grad or IMG or in medical school or otherwise, you are in a very, very select group of people who have the ability to change lives and also change the future of the world. And I think it's something that physicians should be reminded of over and over and over again. And you have incredible ideas and incredible ways to bring those ideas to life. AI is not perfect. This kind of all looks like me. I used to have a little bit longer hair. I think it looked more like me then. I fed it a whole bunch of different pictures, but I think it gets the basic gist. And then since my personal statement, my family has grown and I've gotten married. But the key to me and the thing that I've wanted to do since I was 12 was help people. And I suspect that many of you have wanted to help people, and or have been really good at math and science or innovation, or have had experiences where family members have had challenges, or you personally have had challenges, or any combination thereof, or not. Or you have a parent who's a physician. And there's so many reasons that everyone has found their why. But this is the next key point for you. You are literally trying to communicate your why. And you also want to know the why of who you are, because that's going to help you put your entire application together. And we can sit here and we can go through every component of the application, and that is the literal next session. But I think it's very important to start here with who you are. Who am I? I am someone who loves treating both adults and pediatric patient populations. I love the discussion where you have to earn someone's trust before they go into the operating room. And earning that trust, I find, is one of the most sacred conversations two humans can have. I love joking with kids in clinic. I've used literally Kermit the Frog and Muppets as part of treatment plans for patients. I've sung songs from The Lion King to kids in the hospital on Christmas carols and all these different things and found way to connect with people. I've done telemedicine. I believe humor is a very strong way for us to heal. And one of my corniest jokes was when people were terrified of having an IV put in the before they went to the OR, and you were able to get it in with some lidocaine or otherwise, they would go, that wasn't that bad. And I would always make a very similar joke to the extent of, well, fortunately, you're getting surgery on Wednesday. Because on Thursday, I go to the other side of the room and I try and throw the IV like a dart. And they would laugh and they would chuckle and they would grimace. But sometimes they would make a joke back. And that's why Frankenstein's on here, who was actually in my personal statement because a patient I was talking to one day said, please make sure they don't put Abby Normal's brain in my head and I get to keep my brain. And they were joking and they were laughing and they needed a good laugh. And that's a line from the movie Young Frankenstein. But this is very much me in many different ways. And so, I put this up front. So one, you know who I am, you know who Thalamus is. A lot of our different people will tell you their whys and why they're in GME. No one ends up here by accident. We end up here because we're passionate about it. We want this process to be as simple for you as possible, knowing that the process is very, very complicated and maybe continues to get more complicated, which we will discuss as well. But find your purpose, find your why, write it down, sit down with AI, build pictures, write it down, ask friends and family, ask people who trust you, ask advisors, ask mentors, ask classmates. Figure out the you and the you who you are and the things that are important to you because that's what you're going to want to portray in your application, and that's what we'll dive into as well. Similar narrative, the narrative of Thalamus, the reason this exists and the reason I'm doing what I'm doing and much of our team is doing what we're doing, because when I applied to residency in 2012, I got stuck in New York City during Hurricane Sandy and all of my interviews were canceled. And Lower Manhattan was without power. Staten Island was underwater. You couldn't get in or out of the city. The subways were flooded. There were applicants who couldn't get to many of their interviews, including an applicant that I met a week later out in a program on Long Island who paid $600 for a cab from Staten Island out to Long Island before the days of Lyft and Uber because their car had literally floated away in the storm. Lesson one is almost nothing will go perfect. Your season cannot go perfect. Uh, but knowing that it won't go perfect, if something doesn't go perfect, you'll be able to adjust. And I would encourage you to turn that into a strength. Your internet may go out on a virtual interview. Your computer might break. There may be a hurricane. You may be traveling across the country, and your flight's delayed. If you have an in-person interview, your airline may send your luggage to the opposite end of the country, which happened to me once, or any combination of things, snowstorms, you name it. Your season won't go perfectly sometimes, and this happened to me too. I showed up at a program who forgot I was interviewing that day. They were very impressed that I made it there, and looking back on it, so was I. These things won't go perfect, but these are the things that make this process fun. It is a marathon and not a sprint. And so now turning it over to you as the applicants. And this is what we hear a lot is that residency recruitment feels a lot like a black box. The process isn't always clear and it's easy to feel like you're guessing. And so you may wonder what matters. Do I have enough research? Should I signal? Who should I signal? Where should I signal? Am I competitive? Should I be applying to multiple specialties? What part of the country should I be in? What does geographic preference signaling look like versus preference signals? My specialty has secondary essays, or I need a slow, or how many letters of recommendation? These are all questions we're going to answer in this series, both at high level and in more detail. I think the important thing here is this process can feel incredibly uncertain. It is not always clear, and it can feel like you're guessing. Programs are not asking who is the perfect applicant. There is not a perfect applicant. There are applicants and programs that are best aligned for each other, and I think finding each other is the key. They are asking who will become a great resident, but also what a great resident means is different at every single program. You are, in essence, going on a big dating project across programs and applicants trying to match up, and not everyone is right for each other, but there are optimal pairs for almost everybody. And finding that is going to be the key. So, as you're going through this process, help them see the story. That's where your journey begins. Now, there are four distinct applicant types in this process. And that is USMD, USDO, US citizen IMG, and non-US citizen IMG. You are four very distinct groups of applicants. You are all incredible people who can all and will all make amazing physicians. But I think there is nuances to every one of these buckets and these categories. They all have slightly different paths, and that's what this process is going to show as well. Programs aren't recruiting you from a spreadsheet. They are recruiting you from your application, but regardless, they are trying to recruit you as people. Everyone here probably got their start or their interest in medicine into different ways. There is no one size fits all. The perfect applicant, as I mentioned, does not exist, but there is a best program for the doctor you want to be, and that is what I encourage you to find. Not to chase prestige and find the best program prestige-wise, but the best program for you and what you want to accomplish as a person, as a physician, for your patients, for your specialty, or otherwise. And it is a long and windy road. It is a journey, and it is important to know that just the journey is handled differently, and we'll cover these nuances in the series as well. Getting clarity into who you are is going to be very important in this process. It will help you confidently fill out your application and will be your advantage. The more intentional you are here, the more doors that will open. I can't stress this enough, which is why we're starting here rather than you're applying to residency. Here's an application. Here are the parts of the application. That's intentionally why that's session two, because over the next week, we would like everyone to think about these kind of key buckets in terms of the self-reflection, research, look on the internet for who you want to be or the specialty that you're looking for, see how well it aligns for you, and that will help you build your application strategy, which we will hone over the coming weeks. So you do not need to have it all figured out. You just need a plan. I did not have it figured out at this point in the process. I was still determining what specialties I wanted to go into. In a Google search one night, I even realized that, oh gosh, there are pediatric anesthesiology combined programs. I had never heard of these. They're very few and far between. They're very small, but I applied across multiple specialties as well, given there are only 5 combined pediatrics anesthesiology programs. My interest is in clinical interest is in pediatric chronic pain and the things that medicine has a very hard time explaining. But I also applied pediatrics, categorical pediatrics programs, and advanced and categorical anesthesiology programs. In your self-reflection, it may be multiple specialties are in your path. You need to figure out the narrative that you're telling to each specialty. There is no right or wrong answer to whether you apply to multiple specialties. In the same way, there's no right or wrong answer if you're couples matching, or if you're applying to research tracks, if you're applying to this or applying to that. It's about finding what you want. There are lots of different programs all around the country, and this is why the self-reflection and this kind of finding clarity in how you want to apply is important. Your advisory deans, your colleagues, your friends, your mentors are also great sources of advice for this as well. And every experience and every choice helps to build your story. There are 4 building blocks to that story: purpose and why you chose medicine and why it's important to you, growth, how you have changed throughout your life, have you have grown professionally, emotionally, um, uh, distance travels, overcoming adversity, resiliency, the path that you've taken, your commitment to the profession or your commitment to being a physician. What have you repeatedly chosen to do? And the impact that you've made, who benefited. And so programs aren't evaluating each portion of your application as planks. They may look at certain of them as different parts of the application, and they may view them in isolation, but look at it as a bridge or a story. They're trying to piece together the entire story so that you can kind of get across the points that you're trying to make. This is one of the slides that I mentioned in the beginning, is that if you use AI, know that it isn't perfect. Admification, tutorship, leeching, and then it just goes into jargon towards the end of that bridge. You got to look at that very closely to see that, or you don't see that. We'll talk more about AI as well, but these are kind of the key building blocks of who you are. One individual plank versus another isn't going to change anything. The programs are going to assess in your application, who is this person? What are their dreams? What are they trying to achieve? They'll put you up against their own academic kind of mission and alignment of what they're trying to recruit in their residency and within their specialty. They will try to assess if there is alignment there overall. Some of them will have certain criteria and certain cutoffs and use filters. Others will use more holistic review overall as well. There are pieces of this process you can control. There are other pieces which you cannot. We will discuss all of them. But the very, very critical piece is that you want to maximize and optimize your application for the highest number of people that are reading it to understand who you are as a person and what is important to you. That can be very, very, very broad in a residency application, especially since it asks things about adversity, and we as physicians understand health challenges, and many of us have had them. And what do you talk about in an application, and what do you not talk about in an application? With each thing you share about yourself, know that there are some people in the process who will very much appreciate it, but there also may be others in the process that do not. If you have a health issue, uh, you can disclose that. You can talk about it. If it's the reason why you went into medicine, you can talk about that as well. You can also say that by disclosing a lot of things about that or keeping it a bit more private. And that's very much a personal choice. I use this as just one example because the more detail you share, that may resonate with some people and look at it as a story of resiliency or compassion or empathy or otherwise. Or it could be something that gives the program pause. All of these things need to be considered in your application and need to tie together into the physician that you are, your path to this point, and who you want to be going forward. And that plan is going to get you started, and then the path and the pathway that we're going to talk about is where we go from there. Um, it's the actions, it's what you do next. And as we go through this entire series, and as we start to help you build your narrative and understand how to hone that narrative and understand how to put that narrative into an application and how it works within the system and the processes and the interview invitations and the ranking of programs and when you enter a rank list and how to register for the match and all of these key components, the first step you're needing to do is take action. Submit your plan, start somewhere, and start moving forward. Throughout, seek support, find mentors, build your network, lean on your community. There's nothing wrong with networking. You should be networking. You should always be networking. They don't really teach us how to network in medical school, but if you're interested in a specialty, plan to go to that specialties conference this year if you have the ability to get there, or a specialties conference if there's one closer to you in a specialty that might be interested. Go to the residency sessions that they have, or the GME sessions, or the residency fairs. Meet people, talk to them, learn about the profession, let them know you're applying. This will come in handy during recruitment season, or if the specialty has a conference during recruitment season, you'll be able to do that as well. And that way, when you meet them a second time, it's not nice to meet you, it's nice to see you again. And that can very much matter too. Stay curious, keep learning about the process, asking questions, explore possibilities. I will caveat that with there's a lot of information online. Please take it with a grain of salt, particularly in areas that aren't vetted. You can find lots of information. It's very easy to have lots of misinformation as well. And so just put everything in check, ask questions, and bounce it and validate it off colleagues and friends. You will see people that say they've gotten many invites in the process. Some of it might be true, some of it might be, embellished a bit for the internet. Celebrate your progress through this process as well. Acknowledge wins, learn from setbacks, and keep going. This is going to help you build your narrative in going through this process as well. There are things that you can share in your interview process and throughout the rest of the process. And create impact, make a difference, inspire others, and shape the future. You're going to get to the other side of this. You're going to be given the greatest gift of taking care of patients. And this is something to really be excited about overall. And so this is what we're moving towards. And so these narratives take many different forms, and it's starting to build and help you build an identity overall. So whether you're interested in serving rural and underserved communities, or you're couples matching, or you're an MD PhD wanting to do research, or you're an MD MBA, or you don't have an MBA, you're just someone who's interested in innovation and technology and AI and machine learning, or taking care of particular patient populations or particular fields of medicine, or exploring things that no one's ever explored before in medicine. This is the narrative you're trying to create so that as someone reads this, they're able to see this overall. Talk about this in upcoming sessions. At the end of the day, this narrative that you've created needs to jump off the page in Cortex, which is our application review tool in Thalamus, which we'll talk about and kind of everything that applies to. It's very similar to the ARIS Program Director's Workstation, or PDWS, which is how programs are reviewing your application overall and where that data goes and what that looks like overall as well. And kind of how they review all of this. And we'll go through each and every component of this so you understand it. But we will also, help you optimize for writing this application because you need to also write this narrative for people who are very busy and sometimes programs that receive up to 10,000 applications. So more to come there as well. Behind every application, as we talk about, is a story, but that story needs to be able to be seen and pulled easily. And so program directors and program coordinators and administrators and faculty and those reviewing your applications are doing so between patient care duties. And they're receiving lots of applications. And in many conversations with the GME community, they're worried that sometimes they miss people too because they don't either get to particular stories or they're using filters or they're just trying to get through a very large load of applications. And so write your application so that they can see who you are behind the numbers, understands your why, your growth, your impact, and your future, and building that narrative. They are busy. The pile is big at most to all programs, and the decisions are hard. And so the more that narrative can pop off and they can process your narrative and pull your narrative from different components of your application, if they don't read all of those components, that's important as well. Things like the personal statement, you can submit a different personal statement to every single program and every single specialty. I think that that's overkill. If you're applying multiple specialties, you're probably going to want to submit different personal statements. We'll talk about all of these strategies overall, but you can put most impactful experiences in your application, which don't change across. And so some program directors will actually look there first because they know that is part of your application that goes to all programs. And that helps them understand your story even more than something that can be honed just to their program as well. The other important narrative you're really going to want to focus on is your geographic narrative. Programs will be asking not only will you thrive here and contribute here, but they will also ask, will you actually go there? Do you actually have ties to that area? Do you have ties to that community? Do you have ties to that patient population? Preference signals, as they've grown, are the largest determinant of whether you get an interview and the most impactful variable in your application as to whether you get an interview. Prior to that, and what was first and is now second, is your geographic connection to a program. If you grew up in a state or go to medical school in a state, you have, as a US grad, you have the highest likelihood of matching in that state, more than any other state in the country, and that effect falls off as you move to neighboring states and neighbors, neighbors, and so on and so forth. We've done research in primary care and anesthesia and several specialties, and that is held for every state and region in the country. It doesn't mean you only stay in your state, but it means statistically, before the process even starts, you have the highest likelihood of matching in that state of your hometown or your medical school. If you are a USIMG, that means the state that you are from is the state you're most likely to match in because your medical school will have been overseas somewhere. And if you are a non-US citizen IMG, that if you don't have a home state in the US, I don't think those rules apply then. And this is where some of the nuance comes in overall as well. But just because you didn't grow up in the US or you didn't go to medical school in the US, the question they're trying to ask across all applicant populations is why here over anywhere else? And are there meaningful experiences in the surrounding area of that program? Community engagement, service, and impact. Is there a long-term vision that you want to practice there or in a population like that? Or is it a strong fit for their mission? You should show the program why this geography matters to you, connections you've made, connections that you have, be it a spouse or a partner or your couples matching, or your partner works in a particular field, or you have family in the area. All of those reasons are reasons programs want to understand because they want to understand your likelihood of attending their program. And so, in your narrative itself, I would strongly encourage you to think about the geographic narrative and how it comes off as to how you fit in various communities. We will talk about, if I signal a program, do I need to geographic signal there as well? How does this tie into where I went to medical school and in my specialty? And if I did away rotations, the broad piece here is if the program can understand why you geographically want to be in that area, they will be able to better and more broadly apply your narrative as to how it fits into their program as well, because this is a key question programs ask. And they also know it's a key question that applicants ask in terms of where they want to be geographically as well. And then finally, the other question is, should I use AI on my application? Yes, I would use AI on your application, but I would use it wisely. I would not have it write the first draft of your personal statement. I would have it brainstorm for you ways and things you can write in your personal statement. You do not want your personal statement to feel like it's coming off of as being fully written by AI. If English is your first language and your first written language, I would encourage you to write your own personal statement. If English is not your first language, for international medical graduates, you can certainly start with AI as the first draft to help you get that narrative down. But know that AI has a very particular way of writing. Humans aren't always great at distinguishing whether or not it is. We don't have any technology in Thalamus that assesses whether you wrote anything with AI or otherwise. Lots of letters of recommendations are being written by AI. AI can help you strategize on your application as well, brainstorm ideas, improve clarity and grammar, organize your thoughts, and polish your writing. But watch out, you really don't want to sound generic or robotic. Generic or robotic narrative is not a powerful narrative. You want to make sure it doesn't have inaccurate or made up information, particularly if it's doing factual parts of your application. You don't want stories to appear weak or vague. You don't want stories to not feel like they're you. They will ask you about these things in your interview as well, and you also don't want to bring up any ethical concerns. Use it as a tool, not your ghostwriter. Start with your own ideas and stories and use AI to refine. Add your unique voice and experiences, proofread, fact check, personalize. I write a lot of things with AI. I don't let it write. I let it write sometimes the first draft, but then I change everything because I want it to be my voice and I take it for the ideas. And that's what I would encourage you to do as well. You need to bring the authenticity here, particularly in a world where AI is becoming more and more apparent. Program directors are saying it's harder for them to read personal statements, or if it sounds like it's written by AI, but a great personal statement can really help you, as can good writing in the rest of your application. Know that they are scanning these things quickly as well. And so in your application, you can write in bullet points. You don't have to write everything in paragraphs. For your personal statement, you would write in paragraphs. But AI, it's a lot going around the world about AI and about humanity. I do think you can use it on your application. It's being widely used in letters of recommendation as well, and throughout medical education, as I'm sure you're all seeing day in and day out as well. So program directors are looking for you. You also want the program to be looking for you. You don't want them to be looking for a version of you that you think they want you, that you think they want you to be. They You want to be you. And so your story, your voice, and your potential, be honest, be real, and be you. Do not write your application for what you think they want to hear. And your advisors can help with this also. Okay, so I'm going to open up for questions in just a second, but in terms of the summary, programs are looking for trainees that align with their educational missions. They'll ask things like, what will you be like as a colleague, even on the most challenging clinical days, at 2 o'clock in the morning, overnight, on call, having the most challenging patient that anyone's seen that entire month? Are you reliable? Are you resilient? Are you able to think through things clinically? Does your narrative make sense to them? Can they connect the dots? Does it align with the program's narrative and their educational mission? So you're trying to write your application with a unified narrative that includes a unified geography and geographic narrative. As I mentioned, it's okay to use AI, but use it for ideas and then make it your own. Uh, Again, the process starts with self-reflection and figuring out the type of physician you want to be, the specialty you want to practice, the patients you want to treat. And really, again, try not to chase prestige. Don't chase this concept of a dream program, but chase your purpose. Chase what you're trying to find. If it's at a prestigious program, fantastic. But there is more than prestige. I've been at prestigious places, I've been at less prestigious places, I've been in all different types of places and have friends and colleagues who have done the same. Finding purpose in your life is going to be what's going to make you the most excited over the long run. It's going to give you the most sense of satisfaction. It's going to help you mitigate burnout. And so these are the things we want to help through this session as well and this series. We will see folks again on June 25th at 8 p.m. As I mentioned, we'll send an email out, kind of a debrief from this session. We'll be sending out information about the next session as well. That will go through all of the components of the application, tips and tricks in filling out the application, understanding the signals you send, and otherwise. And we will kind of build from there and always give you a preview of the next session at the session that follows. And as I mentioned, we really value your feedback. Please complete this short survey to help shape future trainings and help shape future ways we define this series and the future ways we present this series. Again, this one, because it's on narrative, was meant to be very visual and very abstract. We have some that are planned with lots of bullet points and lots of tips and tricks and diving into the technologies and diving into the application process and what should you write in a personal statement and what does a slow look like and how do you get your transcripts, and how do you upload your photo, and how do you register for this and register for that, and what does interview scheduling look like? We're trying to approach this from lots of different ways. There's a lot of information we want to convey, and so we're building our narrative through this series as well. And so, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm going to open it up for questions. If there are questions in the chat, we'd be happy to answer them if they've gone unanswered. And we'll talk more about technology and such as well. If you feel so moved and would like to come off mute or on cam and ask us a question that way, we'd be happy to answer those as well. And so I will open it up to questions.